As we begin Chapter 1, settle into your favorite chair and let your shoulders relax. Imagine the cool dusk air of colonial Massachusetts brushing against your skin. A pale moon hovers above the clustered rooftops of Salem Village like a watchful lantern. Softly close your eyes for a moment and picture the narrow dirt paths weaving between clapboard houses. Maybe take a gentle sip of warm tea as you breathe in the scent of pine and damp earth. The year is 1692 and an uneasy hush lies over the settlement. You might hear the distant creak of a wagon wheel rolling along the main street. Feel the slight tremor in the boards beneath your feet as you tiptoe toward the meeting house. Inside, the heavy wooden pews wait empty, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of prayer. Candles sputter in wrought iron holders, casting tall shadows that dance across the rough-hewn walls. A faint draught whispers through the cracks, carrying the scent of burning tallow. You could wrap yourself in a soft blanket now, letting its weight ground you in this bygone moment. At the pulpit, a solitary figure pauses to adjust his collar of starched linen. Reverend Samuel Parris's stern silhouette emerges from the glow, his eyes reflecting concern. He has heard troubling rumors swirling through the village like autumn leaves. Families whisper of strange fits and spectral shapes haunting their children at night. The air crackles with a mix of dread and fascination as neighbors exchange furtive glances. In a modest home on the village edge, 3 young girls huddle around a low table. Mercy Lewis, Ann Putnam, and Elizabeth Hubbard press their foreheads together, sharing frightened gasps. Their small lantern illuminates a chipped earthenware bowl where a trembling hand rests. Perhaps you sense the cold porcelain against your fingertips if you picture reaching out to touch it. The girls speak of Tituba, the Parris family's enslaved woman from Barbados. They say she whispered tales of spirits and dark pacts beneath her breath. Now they claim to feel invisible fingers tracing patterns on their skin. By candlelight, their pale faces twist in agony as unseen forces press upon them. And yet, within their fear lies a deeper yearning for attention and escape from strict Puritan rules. Take a slow, steady breath and notice how your heart's rhythm matches the cadence of their whispers. Outside, crickets trill in the tall grass and the wind rustles through the birch trees. You might let a soft breeze from a nearby fan drift across your face to mimic the night air. In the village square, a small crowd gathers around the meeting house steps. Women clutch lanterns, men grip muskets, and children peer between trembling fingers. A hush falls as Mercy emerges, her eyes wild and glassy. She fixes her stare on Sarah Good, a ragged widow rumoured to mutter curses under her breath. Mercy accuses her of tormenting the girls with spectral claws. The crowd gasps, the lantern light flickering like startled fireflies. Take a moment to slow your breathing and let sympathy stir for both the fearful and the accused. No one speaks of the long winter's hardships or the bitter disputes over land that still burn beneath polite conversation. And yet, these undercurrents of resentment swirl like eddies beneath the surface of Salem's calm facade. Consider closing your eyes briefly to feel the weight of centuries pressing upon you. Feel the scratch of coarse wool against your skin as you imagine standing among the villagers. A drum of horse hooves breaks the tension as a messenger arrives on horseback. He dismounts clumsily, jostling the lantern until it wavers. In his hand he carries a folded parchment sealed with crimson wax. His breath puffs in white clouds, smelling faintly of peppermint and smoke. He extends the letter toward Reverend Paris, who accepts it with a solemn nod. The parchment details new accusations, a list of names scrawled in trembling ink. You can almost hear the scratch of quill against paper as each name is added. These names belong to upstanding citizens, shopkeepers, farmers, and even the minister's cousins. A ripple of disbelief courses through the crowd. The boundaries between neighbour and outsider blur in a tide of suspicion. In a hush broken only by nervous whispers, the villagers await Paris's word. He clears his throat, the sound echoing like distant thunder. His voice is steady but carries the tremor of uncertainty. "The Lord works in mysterious ways," he intones softly. Take another slow breath and feel the tension ease, like a wave receding from the shore. In the half-light, you spot a flicker of remorse in Mercy's eyes. A single tear rolls down her cheek, shimmering in the lantern glow. Her confession has given her power, but it has also chained her to the fear she helped unleash. Reflect on the curious dance between fear and power as you let your thoughts drift. Some villagers clutch prayer books, others unfold their hands in silent supplication. The hush is almost holy, a contrast to the chaos that threatens to spill over. Imagine the quiet rustle of fabric as someone crosses themselves, lips moving in whispered prayer. Outside the circle of light, the forest stands like a silent sentinel. The ancient pines loom tall, their needles whispering secrets to the wind. You might open a window slightly to hear a soft rustle of leaves, grounding you further in the scene. Deep in the woods, an owl hoots once, a solitary sound that sends a chill through the spine. The villagers stare toward the trees as if expecting shadows to emerge. Every creak, every sigh of wind becomes a portent of doom. Sense the needle-sharp anticipation, as tight as the seams of a tailor's coat. Then, slowly, Paris tucks the parchment beneath his arm and steps away from the crowd. He retreats inside, leaving a hush thicker than the fog enveloping the village. The lanterns flicker once more, revealing faces etched with fear and doubt. A woman's soft sob drifts through the night, a reminder that grief walks beside accusation. Take a gentle sip of your tea and let its warmth contrast with the chill in your bones. Let your eyes close for just a moment, savoring the tension that lingers in the air. In Salem, a single whispered fear can ignite a blaze of suspicion. And tonight, that spark has been struck. Your journey through these haunted streets has only just begun. As we begin Chapter 2, imagine the first pale light of dawn filtering through frost-laced windows. You can almost feel the icy breeze brushing your cheek as you lean toward the meeting house threshold. Outside, the ground is hard with morning frost that crackles softly under cautious footsteps. Each breath you draw sends a misty curl into the chill air, whispering secrets of winter past. A lone church bell tolls in the distance, its sound resonating like a solemn heartbeat. Meanwhile, villagers gather in hushed clusters by the wooden palisade, their breath rising in rhythmic pulses. Men in threadbare wool coats and wide-brimmed hats stamp their feet to ward off the cold. Women in simple linen kirtles tighten shawls around their shoulders, the fabric rustling like whispered prayers. Children clutch small bundles of straw for warmth, their cheeks flushed pink with anticipation. Now picture Giles Corey stepping forward with measured gait, his back stiff with years of labour in the fields. He wears a coarse wool doublet, its seams holding memories of lean harvests and long days beneath the sun. He places calloused hands upon the gnarled rails of the court platform, fingernails trimmed close from toil. You might let your own fingertips trace the rough wood grain to feel his quiet resolve. The magistrate's clerk, a thin man with lantern eyes, sits nearby with quill poised over a weathered ledger. Listen for the faint scratch of quill on parchment as he awaits Corey's defiant plea. "I cannot answer," Giles intones, voice low and unwavering despite trembling limbs. And yet the courtroom hush deepens, hanging heavy like a woolen blanket against the rafters. You may wish to cradle a warm mug in your hands now, letting its weight steady your spirit. At his side stands Martha Corey, her face pale beneath a linen coif, eyes brimming with worried compassion. Her hands pressed gently against her husband's elbow in silent support, knuckles whitening. Beyond them, a cluster of villagers watches with furrowed brows and taut expressions. Their breath mists in the little lantern glow, ghostly plumes drifting toward the dark beams above. Then the clerk begins to read the charges. Spectral evidence, fits unexplained, associations with the unseen. Each accusation lands like ice upon uneasy hearts, solidifying dread into certainty. Meanwhile, in a separate gallery, Rebecca Nurse peers over a pew, her silver hair braided into a crown. She stands accused not of malice, but of unnatural afflictions visited upon her neighbour's children. Her gentle hands once sowed gardens of healing herbs, now she stands accused of sinister arts. Feel the weight of injustice settle like a stone in your chest as her trial unfolds. Outside, the air carries the faint tang of wood smoke and pine resin from early stoking fires. You might inhale deeply to anchor yourself in the moment, letting the aroma root you in place. Inside, a hush gives way to murmured objections as neighbours dispute the nurse family's reputation. Some speak of her lifelong kindness, others recall whispered rumours of hidden rituals. And yet the tension coils tighter, each side braced for a final verdict. As the judge raises his gavel, a tremor passes through the assembled souls. In that breath, you can feel the weight of generations pressing toward the present. Take a slow exhale now, letting the anticipation ease like a receding tide. Meanwhile, in a dim corner, a widow named Bridget Bishop waits, tears tracking down lined cheeks. She clutches a folded kerchief scented faintly of lavender and mothballs, a remnant of better days. Her eyes flicker between jurors as she summons courage to speak her truth. Imagine the softness of her lament carried on the hush of the courtroom air. "I am innocent," she whispers, voice quavering yet determined beneath the oak beams. Then a sudden gasp ripples through the crowd as Elizabeth Hubbard convulses, head thrashing. Her pinchings and contortions mirror other afflicted girls, drawing fearful gasps. You might picture the subtle twitch of muscle beneath taut linen, each movement charged. Outside the gallery windows, snowdrops peek through soil half frozen, fragile signs of new beginnings. The stark contrast of life's renewal and human suffering mingles in the same breath. In that moment, you sense the fragile balance between hope and despair in Salem's streets. Next, focus on the hush as Joseph Putnam leans forward, spectacles glinting in lantern light. He studies the afflicted girls with fierce scrutiny, lips pressed in thin determination. His wife whispers in his ear, voice soft but urgent, urging caution and mercy in equal measure. You could let a single tear slip down your own cheek in silent empathy with the moment. Suddenly a sharp knock echoes through the chamber, jolting all souls to alert stillness. The door swings inward to reveal a messenger boy bearing urgent dispatches from Boston. He bows deeply, the hush broken only by the soft whisper of paper rustling. Then, as he retreats, a hanging lantern sways, casting ribbons of shadow that dance across faces. And you might allow a soft fan breeze to trace similar shadows across your own surroundings. The paper's contents detail the governor's orders, new interrogations and expanded writs. Justice here is no longer contained by village lines, but pulled taut by higher decree. The weight of distant authority settles upon local lives like a heavy cloak. Feel that cloak's weight on your shoulders for a fleeting moment, a reminder of unseen forces. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, the rising sun kisses frost-tipped rooftops with pale gold. A hush of dawn sunlight cuts through the gloom, promising neither relief nor reprieve. Travellers among you might sense the promise of a journey yet to begin. But here, communities fracture and loyalties shift with the turning of a single page. Remember to draw in a long, steady breath and let it out softly like warm smoke. In that moment, you stand with witnesses whose courage and fear entwine in equal measure. Let the rhythm of your breathing match the clamour of whispered accusations. In these trials, every heartbeat feels as though it might be the next verdict. You might press your fingertips together now, feeling the cool touch grounding you in reality. As snow melts in hidden corners, so too might the truths come to light in unexpected ways. But here, under stark rafters, the echoes of doubt remain etched in every gaze. Take a gentle sip from your own warming drink, savouring its steady comfort. Let your eyes soften as you watch the next witness ascend the platform. In Salem's charged air, the line between neighbour and accuser blurs with each spoken name. And as you open your eyes once more, know that history watches through vigilant shadows. As we begin Chapter 3, picture yourself lying in your narrow bed under a rough wool quilt. The dusk outside filters through a small shuttered window, painting the room in muted amber hues. A low wooden chest sits at the foot of the bed, its iron hinges whispering with each subtle shift. You can almost feel the grain of the floorboards beneath your worn slippers. In the corner, a single iron candlestick wavers, its flame casting elongated shadows along the plank walls. The scent of damp pine and smouldering tallow lingers in the air, as if recently stirred. A faint scurry echoes from the rafters, suggesting hidden creatures rustling unseen. In the hush, the distant toll of a bell marks another hour of uneasy vigil. Outside, a lone owl wings silently between skeletal tree limbs. The hush of night amplifies each creak of the house, as if it breathes around you. A gentle draft slips beneath the door, carrying distant murmurs from the courthouse. Despite the distance, you sense the weight of tension still hanging over Salem. The quilt shifts against your ankles as you turn to gaze at a wooden beam overhead. On that beam you imagine carved initials, whispered memories of villagers long departed. The bed's simple mattress yields softly, cradling you in its coarse embrace. Above the hearth, a blackened kettle rests cold, waiting for the morning's flame. Across the room, a battered stool stands empty, its seat worn smooth by daily chores. You might trace the stool's curved edge with your fingertips to feel its history. The wall's rough plaster bears faint cracks like spiderwebs frozen in time. A scrap of faded cloth hangs pinned near the window, a remnant of someone's humble prayer. Its frayed edges flutter in the draught, recalling lives caught between faith and fear. Beyond the shutter, moonlight glints off frost-kissed shrubs dotting the courtyard. Each twig appears etched in silver, sharp against the velvety darkness. The silence stretches, pressing gently like the weight of a woolen hood. In that stillness, you might feel a slight tremor as footsteps approach the door. A soft knock echoes, deliberate and hushed, demanding attention. You rise and slide the bolt free, the metal scraping faintly against wood. The door creaks open to reveal a cloaked figure bearing a small wooden box. Their hood shadows half of their face, leaving only their eyes visible by lantern light. They step inside and set the box upon the chest with measured care. The latch lifts with a muted click, revealing a collection of folded parchments. Each sheet bears a flourish of ink that speaks of new warrants and uneasy orders. You trace one trembling hand across the crisp edges, reading names scrawled beneath flickering light. The figure turns away, leaving you alone with the chilling summons. A gentle sigh escapes your lips, the weight of another dawn's reckoning settling in your chest. You replace the parchments and close the lid, its hinge groaning softly. Candle soot smudges your fingertips as you blow out the flame. The room plunges into inky darkness, pierced only by silver slivers at the window. You ease back into the mattress, drawing the quilt up to your chin. Your eyes remain open, reflecting the pale moonlight dancing on the wall. In the hush, you sense a gathering storm beyond the narrow streets. Each distant footstep carries the promise of new accusations at dawn. You shift, the quilt wrinkling beneath your elbow as memories of earlier trials surface. A single moth flutters near the window, its wings brushing the glass with faint clicks. Its fragile form reminds you of fragile lives trembling under suspicion's weight. A soft breeze slips in through a crack, carrying distant strains of church hymn. The melody is quiet and broken, like prayers whispered in fear. You might imagine turning your head to catch each fleeting note. Beyond the hush, walls seem to inhale the gathering darkness. Your mind drifts to the village square, now empty under the moon's pale gaze. Stone well covers rest cold, and abandoned lanterns sway in hollow sockets. A distant dog's bark cuts through the stillness, urgent and lonely. The echo fades, leaving a trembling hush in its wake. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the coarse quilt press gently against your skin. In that darkness, each heartbeat seems to echo like a distant drum. A sudden creak overhead jolts you upright on the narrow bed. The rafters groan as if stirred by unseen weight, each plank shifting in protest. Your breath catches as you stare into the blackness above. A single beam of moonlight finds its way through the warp of the shutter. It traces a silvery line on the floor, connecting your bed to the door. You rise once more, drawn by restless curiosity. Bare feet meet the cold boards with a jolt to your senses. You slip across the room to the window, parting the shutter's edge. Through the gap, you see the courthouse steps bathed in pale moonlight. Stone pillars stand silent sentry, guardians of bygone judgments. You imagine phantom crowds returning to plead their innocence once more. The hush of night carries their unspoken fears across the empty square. You withdraw from the window, heart pounding in the silent room. Returning to bed, you lie flat on your back, arms resting at your sides. The quilt feels heavier now, as though shared burdens lie within its weave. In the faint silver glow, you notice a spider's web strung across a ceiling beam. Its filaments glint like spun glass, fragile and perfect. You marvel at its intricate design, a testament to quiet perseverance. In that stillness, you feel a kinship with unseen weavers of fate. The night deepens, and shadows pool in the corners of the room. Your eyes follow the cracks in the plaster, imagining hidden maps beneath the surface. Each fissure seems to point towards secrets waiting to be unearthed. A soft chirp from a distant cricket breaks the heavy hush. Its small voice resonates with unexpected clarity in the gloom. You let the sound fill the room, a reminder of life persisting in darkness. Beyond the cricket's call, you sense the approaching hour of reckoning. Soon, torches will flare along the street and voices will rise in accusation again. You draw the quilt tighter, its rough fibers grounding your trembling thoughts. The room's edges blur, the bed becomes your solitary island in the night. Your gaze drifts to the chest once more, its contents heavy with fate. In the hush, you remember the faces of the accused before dawn. You recall their trembling whispers, the weight of guilt unfairly assigned. A glimmer of resolve rises within you, a silent vow to bear witness. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the shutters in urgent taps. You press your ear against the cool wood, straining to catch each message. The sound lingers, as if calling you to stand against unjust tides. The night's tension seems to settle within your bones. You rest your hand on the quilt's edge, feeling its rough reassurance. In the darkness, every heartbeat feels magnified, each moment prolonged. You lie there until the first grey light seeps under the shutter gap. The hush fractures and shadows retreat before dawn's pale advance. Your eyelids grow heavy, lulled by the night's final silence. As sleep claims you, you carry the weight of Salem's trials into dreams. Tomorrow will demand courage in new forms, but for now, rest remains your refuge. In that fragile peace, you drift toward morning on a current of whispered histories. As we begin Chapter 4, imagine reclining upon a rough straw pallet beside a low shuttered window. The night air creeps in around the edges of the shutter, carrying distant echoes from the square. A lantern perched on a chipped wooden stool glows dimly, its holder cracked and blackened. Across the room, a stack of clay pots sits silent, their surfaces coated in ash and mildew. From the hearthless corner comes a faint scraping, as if a mouse scurries among fallen debris. The chamber's walls bear scratched tally marks, recording days of fear and sleepless nights. In the hush, the floorboards moan beneath the weight of unseen footsteps. A heavy cloak hangs on a peg, its wool fibres stiff with cold dew from the night. You might smooth the cloak's hem with your fingertips to feel its coarse texture. Outside, moonlight spills through the shutter in a narrow beam, illuminating motes of dust. Each speck seems suspended in time, drifting lazily in the silver shaft. The scent of damp earth drifts up from the winding stair beyond the threshold. You can almost feel the chill of the stone below echoing in the room's stillness. A quiet thud resonates as the latch on the outer door is slowly lifted. You press your ear against the wooden plank, straining to catch the hushed murmur beyond. The distant sound of a horse's breath exhales in rhythmic gusts along the corridor. Through the gap, you glimpse a leather boot stepping across the dusty floor. The visitor's cloak flickers in the lantern glow before slipping into shadow. A hand reaches in, placing a bent letter upon a sagging table. You step forward, fingers brushing the parchment's edge as the script comes into view. The ink has pooled slightly in the indentures, spelling out unfamiliar names. A sudden creak overhead pulls your gaze to the rafters where rats scuttle among broken beams. You imagine their eyes catching the lantern's flicker, darting back into the darkness. A soft tapping begins on the boarded floor, irregular but insistent. You follow the sound to a narrow chest tucked beneath the window. Your fingers trace the carved runes etched into its surface, worn smooth by restless hands. The lid creaks open to reveal folded robes in muted earth tones. Each garment bears a simple linen star, a symbol of uneasy solidarity. You lift one sleeve to examine its frayed cuff, noting tiny holes stitched over time. A distant bell tolls once, reverberating like a slow heartbeat through the stone corridors. The sound carries a weight of unuttered prayers and unnatural whispers. Beyond the table, a battered pew stands against the opposite wall, empty and waiting. You imagine the hush of deference as villagers once knelt upon its rough plank. In the center of the room, a clay pitcher lies shattered, water seeping into the cracks. You crouch to watch the droplets spread in darkening rings across the floor. The cool moisture seeps into your skin, reminding you of frozen mornings past. Flickering light from the lantern dances upon a distended cobweb in the corner. The web's silk threads shimmer like spun silver in the wavering glow. You recall how swiftly fear can entangle even the sturdiest heart. A low rumble vibrates through the walls, as if distant thunder beneath your feet. It might be the river surging under winter ice, or the pound of boots on cobblestones. You rise and move toward the shutter, laying your palm against the rough timber. The wood's grain presses into your palm, cool and unyielding. Beyond the opening, the courtyard lies bathed in pale moonlight. Stone pillars cast long, angular shadows that stretch toward the forest edge. In one pillar's crevice, you spot a small bird's egg, cracked and empty. Its fragile shell reminds you of fleeting innocence in a time of accusation. A distant cry from a hound breaks the night's calm, urgent and forlorn. The echo fades, leaving the courtyard silent once more. You retreat inside, drawing the shutter closed with a deliberate pull. The narrow beam of moonlight retreats into darkness, swallowed by thick wood. In the gloom, the lantern seems to glow more fiercely against the inky walls. Shadows deepen around the table, pooling into silent corners. You set the letter aside and run a hand along the worn tabletop. The grain rises beneath your touch, familiar and steadfast. You notice a series of scratch marks beneath the edge, tallying unspoken hours. A faint scuffle echoes behind the chest, and you whirl to confront the sound. Nothing stirs except the lantern's steady warmth on the cold floor. You steady your senses as you kneel to examine footprints in the dust. The prints are small and irregular, suggesting a child's bare feet. You trace each step back to a small wooden door set into the wall. It opens with a reluctant groan to reveal a narrow, winding stair. You descend into shadows, each step pressing heavily on your mind. A final lantern flicker reveals water dripping from stone slabs below. The air grows cooler, carrying the scent of earth and stale moss. The passage turns sharply to the left, leading you toward distant murmurs. At the bend, you halt, pressed against damp stone, listening to hushed voices. A woman's voice rises in soft lament, weaving sorrow into the stillness. A man's reply echoes with measured authority, tinged by uncertainty. You inch forward to glimpse a pair of figures huddled in an alcove. They sit upon a low bench, faces glinting in silver lantern light. Their cloaks are heavy with travel dust and pine resin. The woman's fingers twist in her lap, beads of faith pressed between thumb and forefinger. The man's posture remains rigid, cloak collar turned high against the draft. Between them lies an open satchel filled with scraps of parchment. You step closer, the rough stone wall grazing your elbow. The parchments list farmsteads and distant relatives, each name fresh in ink. A sudden footstep resounds behind you, sharp against the silent passage. You whirl, only to see a shadow vanish into the stairwell's gloom. Heart hammering, you grasp the satchel and retreat upward. The stair groans beneath your weight, each ascent a test of resolve. At the top, the door closes softly, sealing out the subterranean hush. You stand once more in the chamber, lantern in hand and satchel clasped tight. The straw pallet awaits, dust motes drifting in its folds. You settle upon it again, the satchel's weight anchored at your side. The lantern's glow dims your vision, coaxing heavy lids. You lift the shutter slightly, allowing one sliver of moonlight to fall across your palms. The parchment scraps rustle softly against each other in the satchel. You imagine the voices below continuing their covert counsel. The floorboards beneath you murmur in response, a secret keyboard of quiet creaks. You press your hand against the cold stone beside the mattress. A last soft drip echoes from the stairwell below in measured intervals. The satchel's strap brushes against your ankle, a reminder of clandestine burdens. You close your eyes at last, feeling the rough straw cushion your rest. In that darkness, you drift upon currents of half-remembered voices. The night weaves around you like a tapestry of unseen deeds. As sleep claims you, distant footfalls fade into silent oblivion. Tomorrow awaits with new revelations hidden in worn leather. And in that fragile promise, your vigil continues beneath Salem's unseen gaze. As we begin Chapter 5, picture dawn's grey light seeping through a narrow slit in the shutter. You lie upon the straw pallet, senses alert to every creak of the timber floor. A single mott of straw pokes through the coarse blanket at your side. Beyond the shutter, you hear the distant clatter of a blacksmith's hammer. Its echo drifts up the stairwell like a metronome of daily labor. A thin tendril of smoke curls from a rooftop chimney into the pale sky. In the room's corner, a shattered clay pitcher lies half buried in splintered wood. You push aside the quilt's edge to swing your legs onto the cold floor. Your bare feet meet the rough-hewn planks with a soft thud. The lantern on the stool flickers low, its flame a waning amber eye. You reach out, cradling its iron handle to steady its trembling glow. Across the chamber, the chest awaits with its bent letter still sealed. You lift the lid with quiet resolve, careful not to disturb hidden contents. Inside, the satchel of parchment scraps lies nestled in earth-toned robes. You withdraw a single slip, its inked names unfamiliar and urgent. Outside, a rooster crows from a distant yard, heralding another restless day. The sound carries faintly through the shutter's narrow gap. You tuck the parchment into your tunic and rise fully upright. The chamber's tally marks stand sentinel like silent watchers of time. You trace one with your fingertip, its groove worn smooth by repeated touch. The floorboards groan beneath your shifting weight as you cross to the door. You lift the latch and swing it open into the stair's dim descent. A waft of damp stone and moss greets you at the threshold. Torch sconces flicker along the winding stair, each flame a guardian. You descend step by careful step, shadow stretching ahead of you. At the bottom, a vaulted corridor extends on either side in hush. To your left, a narrow archway leads toward the cold well chamber. To your right, heavy timber doors stand closed like silent sentinels. You pause, listening to the distant murmur of morning prayers. The low hum suggests voices from the meeting house beyond these walls. You choose the left passage, drawn by the stink of stale water. The archway's stones drip with condensation, slick beneath your palm. You step into the circular well room, its lanterns extinguished. At center, a moss-clad well yawns like a dark mouth. You peer over its rim, inhaling the dank breath that rises up. A single drop echoes as it falls into depths unseen. A ladder of faint iron rungs descends into the darkness below. You imagine descending further, but instead withdraw to the corridor. Your breath catches in the chill air, hairs on your neck rising. Back in the hallway, dust motes swirl in a single shaft of light. You follow the corridor toward the courthouse's hidden rear entrance. Faint scuff marks on the flagstones guide your steps like clues. You reach a heavy oak door, its surface scored with deep grooves. The latch resists your push, but you eventually force it ajar. Beyond, a small antechamber opens into the courthouse's cool forehall. Rows of weathered benches line the walls, still bearing morning dew. You brush your sleeve across one, releasing a cloud of dust. The main hall's door stands open, revealing splintered pews ahead. Your boots echo as you step into the empty nave's chill silence. Sunlight filters through high lancet windows, catching stray dust on beams. Each ray of light forms a column of muted gold in the gloom. You cross the cold stone floor toward a cluster of scattered papers. They litter the judge's bench like fallen leaves after a storm. You kneel to gather them, noting smudged ink and trembling handwriting. One page details names of villagers bound for fresh interrogation. Your fingers trace the jagged letters, heart pounding at each name. Each scrivener's flourish feels like a call to hidden kinship. A sudden breeze stirs through a broken mullion, rattling glass shards. You stand as a panel of court records falls with a thud. The noise reverberates in the high vaults, startling your senses. You pocket the papers and turn toward a side gallery stair. Its narrow steps climb toward a vantage above the courtroom floor. You ascend to where the magistrates once observed trials in silence. Dust-coated oaken rail marks your path as you lean over its edge. Below, the empty hall seems haunted by echoes of past verdicts. You imagine phantom spectres pacing between pews in restless inquiry. A rat scurries across the ledge, its whiskers trembling in the gloom. You hold still until it vanishes behind a curtain of cobwebs. Ahead, a small slip window offers a view of the village square. You peer through, spotting a lone cart trundling along the main street. Its wheels leave shallow ruts in the soft morning earth. You turn back and follow a shadowed arch toward the record vault. A carved stone portal stands half hidden by a fallen tapestry. You tug the fabric aside, revealing stacked chests bound with iron hoops. You lift a rusted key from your pouch, guiding it into a lock. The chest creaks open to reveal scrolls bound in leather thongs. You draw one free, unrolling it across a dusty pew. Its seals bear the governor's crest in faded crimson. You read orders for extended curfew and new patrols at dusk. Your stomach tightens at the thought of more oppressive watch. You roll the scroll and replace it with care before retreating. Back in the forehall, you spot fresh charcoal marks on the wall. They trace the outline of a figure's shadow at high noon. You kneel to examine the marks, recognizing them as self-taunts. Someone carved reminders of fear into this stone sanctuary. The corridor beyond leads to a narrow set of spiral stairs. You descend into the cellar, where muted drips echo from walls. Your lantern's glow reveals rows of clay jars packed with herbs. Some jars bear cracked lids, their contents spilled across stone. You recognize crushed lavender and wormwood, herbs of old healing. A torn scrap of scroll lies among the herbs, ink faded to grey. You lift it, reading a fragment of forbidden remedy instructions. The words speak of salves to calm fevers and ease tremors. You glance around, sensing the jar's potency amid suspicion's weight. A clatter echoes as a clay pot upends itself on a low shelf. You catch it mid-fall, the dry herbs spilling into your palm. Their scent of acrid earth and floral musk fills the cellar air. You shake out the remnants, leaving a trail of green dust. Footsteps echo from above. Someone approaches the stairwell. You extinguish the lantern, plunging into near-total darkness. One hand presses against the cold stone wall as you breathe silently. The cellar door's hinges groan as it swings open in slow protest. A hooded figure steps down, lantern raised, face hidden in shadow. They pause mid-descent, listening to your muted presence. You grip a jar's lid, weighing it like a makeshift talisman. The figure moves past, their cloak brushing cobwebs overhead. You wait until their steps recede up the stairs above. Then you relight your lantern with a single flint spark. Golden light floods the cellar, illuminating broken pots and herbs. You scoop up the scattered lavender, tucking it into your pocket. Its faint fragrance steadies a nervous clench in your chest. You rise and climb the spiral stair back into four-hall gloom. At the top, you pause beneath a carved lintel bearing ancient runes. Their shapes seem to shift in the lantern's wavering glow. You trace one with a fingertip, feeling its carved groove. Beyond, the corridor leads you toward the kitchen where dawn stirs. You move softly, guided by crumbs and overturned chairs. A hearth lies cold in that room, ashes scattered at its hearth. Beside it, a battered cooking pot sits atop a low tripod. You peer inside to find half-cooked barley mixed with dried berries. Hunger tugs at your hollow belly, rations running low in hiding. You lift a handful and taste a single berry for reassurance. Its tart sweetness reminds you of summers long past these walls. You pocket the handful and exit into the courtyard with lantern aloft. The square is empty now, save for a broken wheelbarrow frame. Its metal rim glints dully in the grey light of morning. You cross to the well cover, fingers brushing cold stone as always. A distant church bell strikes once more, its tone hollow and deep. You lift your face toward the sky, tasting dew on your lips. A single cloud drifts above, tinted faint peach by rising sun. In that moment, you sense new possibilities stirring in the hush. You turn toward the narrow lane leading homeward, resolve firming. Beneath unspoken skies, you step forward into an uncertain day. As we begin Chapter 6, imagine yourself stepping onto the frost-hardened earth at dawn. Listen to the crunch of ice under your boots as you approach the makeshift prison yard. A pale sun struggles above the horizon, casting long silver fingers across wooden palisades. The scent of damp moss and iron lingers in the crisp air. Nearby, a row of small wooden cells stands silent, their doors bound with rusted iron hinges. A single barred window in each cell reveals faint shadows within. Settle in as the distant clatter of chains echoes from within the dark interior. The ground is strewn with broken straw and tattered blankets. In one cell, you spot a woman's shawl draped across a rough plank bunk. Her name is Mary Easty, and her face remains hidden in shadow. Listen to the soft rustle of fabric as she shifts to ease her aching joints. A thin sliver of moonlight snakes through a crack in the wall. Mary presses her palm against the cold stone, feeling its rough texture. She tightens her shawl around her shoulders, its wool fraying at the edges. The door's lock creaks as a guard approaches with heavy footsteps. His lantern gleams like a distant star in the narrow corridor. You might zone in on its golden glow flickering across rough boards. The guard's boots echo in measured cadence, each step amplifying silence. He pauses at Mary's cell, raps sharply against the doorframe. Mary lifts her gaze, eyes bright with a mixture of fear and defiance. The guard's breath fogs the air as he speaks in clipped tones. He slides a small tin cup through the bars, filled with thin broth. Mary accepts it, her fingers brushing cold metal as she holds it close. The steam dances upward in a pale wisp. You might imagine its warm tendrils slipping through your palms. Beyond the yard, a group of children huddles near the governor's house. They whisper in hushed tones about the trials they have witnessed. One boy clutches a battered wooden toy, its paint peeled by tears. A girl shivers beneath a woolen hood too large for her head. Settle in as their quiet murmurs weave through frozen stillness. A thin plume of smoke curls from the jail's chimney, smelling of damp peat. The smoke drifts above the yard in lazy, curling shapes. It mingles with the breath of the prisoners held within. In the shadows of a corner cell, Giles Corey sits huddled in silence, his shoulders slump beneath a threadbare coat. You might sense the weight of years pressing into his posture. His hands rest on splintered wood, knuckles white from grip. The faint drip of water echoes from a leaky roof above. Each drop falls into a rusty bucket below, stirring echoes of dread. Outside the gate, the hangman's block rests on a platform of worn planks. Nearby, a coil of hempen rope lies neatly wound. You might feel a chill as you picture its rough fibers. A guard sweeps the yard with a torch, his face grim in the orange glow. He pauses at the block, runs a hand along its scarred surface. In the distance, a rooster crows, breaking the fragile dawn hush. Its cry spreads through the yard like a summons. Mary rises unsteadily, clutching the tin cup to her lips. The guard nods curtly and moves on to the next cell. In that moment, the yard feels suspended between night and day. A hush follows each footfall until only your heartbeat remains. Nearby, spectral shapes flicker in and out of sight by the palisade walls. They drift like mist, half seen and unsettling. These are the echoes of those who vanished before dawn's light. Their silent lament flows through the wood grain. You might envision their pale forms pressing against the planks. And yet their sorrow feels oddly comforting in its persistence. In the far corner, two women speak softly through the bars. One is Elizabeth Proctor, eyes rimmed with worry and tears. The other is her friend Ann Putnam, whose voice quivers with empathy. They share a single threadbare blanket between them. A crow alights on the palisade top, its cry slicing through the quiet. The sound echoes like an omen in crisp air. Listen to the rustle of the bird's feathers as it shifts its weight. Its black silhouette is stark against the pale sky. You might feel the sudden flutter of wings behind your own eyes. Meanwhile, beyond the jail walls, the marketplace stirs to life. Merchants roll back shutters and stir coals in smoky braziers. The scent of warm bread and spiced cider drifts on the breeze. But here the prisoners cannot taste such comforts. Mary watches the rising smoke, longing for a hearth of her own. She traces a finger along a spider's web spun in the corner. The web's silk glints with tiny beads of moisture. In its strands she sees fragile connections between lives. And yet each thread trembles with the weight of suspicion. A young guard offers Mary a scrap of bread through the bars. She accepts it with trembling gratitude. The guard's stern expression softens for a fleeting moment. Then he turns and vanishes into shadow. Mary presses the bread to her lips, savouring its warmth. The taste of salt and flour brings tears to her eyes. She closes her eyes to remember gentler days. In that instant, the world tilts between hope and despair. The tin cup clinks as it settles on the floor. You might hear its hollow ring echo in your mind. Outside, the sun's golden glow reaches the yard's centre. The frost recedes from the cobblestones in slow silence. Mary stands and moves to the cell door, stretching stiff limbs. She places her hand on the bars and rests her forehead against them. In that contact, she feels the iron's cold steadfastness. Meanwhile, farther down the row, a young man prays softly. His whispered words drift upward like woven prayer ribbons. They cling to rafters and walls in silent testimony. You might imagine their echoes lingering long after dawn. The marketplace bells toll once more, calling the living to duty. Mary inhales deeply through numb nostrils, bracing herself. She moves to sit again on the bunk, drawing the blanket close. Outside, footsteps hurry past the gate, distant and urgent. Each echo reminds her of time slipping away. A final bird's call pierces the morning hush. Mary leans back, eyes fixed on the small window slit. Pale light slides across her shawl, illuminating worn threads. In the shifting glow, she sees memories of home stitched into its weave. She presses the fabric to her cheek, finding fleeting comfort. A subtle tremor shakes the cell as the outer door swings open. Voices drift in, authoritative, petitioning, fearful. Mary holds her breath as footsteps approach her cell. The guard returns with a rolled petition tied in faded ribbon. He lays it at her feet and steps back into gloom. Mary unties the ribbon with careful fingers. The parchment bears familiar names of her children. Her heart stammers as she reads each line. The petition pleads for mercy and reprieve. Tears roll down her weary cheeks, leaving salt tracks. She folds the letters and slips them into her shawl. Outside, the crowd gathers at the gallows hill. Distant cheers and sobs mingle on the wind. Mary hears the muffled clamour and steadies her breathing. She whispers a silent vow to remember every name. In the hush before steps echo on the platform, she prays. And yet in that silent hope she finds the strength to endure. The lantern at the yard entrance swings as dawn breeze rises. It casts fleeting pools of light that dance on cobblestones. A child's sob drifts from a nearby corner cell. Mary closes her eyes, gathering courage from her own heartbeat. She whispers a prayer for all who suffer unseen. Outside, the blacksmith's hammer rings on hot iron. Its metallic clang resonates like a warning through the town. A baker's door creaks as morning routines unfold. The aroma of yeast and sugar drifts faintly through walls. Mary inhales the distant scent as if tasting freedom. She stands and presses both hands against the cell bars. Fingers splay across the cold iron, tracing its chill. The guard slides open a small hatch for her to look out. Mary peers through, eyes adjusting to the growing light. She surveys the yard filled with anxious faces. Each prisoner stands trembling with both dread and hope. The tall silhouette of the gallows looms beyond the palisade. Mary's gaze lingers on its stark beams of oak. She imagines the voices that will never again return. A hush settles as a herald's trumpet calls attention. Mary straightens her posture, shawl falling from her shoulder. She breathes in deep through the tiny hatch opening. Warm air carries the promise of summer winds. For a moment, the harsh winter's grip feels loosened. The guard's shadow crosses Mary's vision, drawing her back. He lowers the hatch and locks it with a final click. Mary's shoulders sag, but her spirit remains unbowed. She lifts her chin and fixes her gaze on the horizon. In that steadfast stance, she embodies resilience amid despair. And as the dawn sun reaches its full glow, her silent resolve shines with it. As we begin Chapter 7, picture the grey dawn light stretching thin across the rolling hill where the gallows stand. Feel the cool mist clinging to your cloak as you step onto dew-soaked grass, each blade bending beneath your weight. Now hear the soft creak of the wooden scaffold as it settles under invisible pressure. Listen to the distant chirp of a lone sparrow hiding among the dock leaves. Meanwhile, a hush falls over the gathered crowd, as still as the glassy pond at sunrise. Catch the faint scent of damp straw mingling with the earth's warmth. And yet there is tension humming beneath the hush, like a taut bowstring. In the front row stands Anne Putnam, her knitting needles paused mid-click, knuckles whitening around wool. She breathes slowly, watching her breath fog the cool air before her. At her side, Giles' nurse tightens his hold on a folded petition, knuckles white against aged parchment. Now imagine cloaked figures exchanging muted glances as the executioner adjusts the rough hempen rope. Listen for the soft rustle of coarse wool skirts brushing against one another. Feel the grain of weathered planks beneath your boots as you inch closer to the scaffold's edge. A single lantern wavers nearby, its candle guttering in a sudden breeze. You might hold your own hand near your throat, feeling its pulse echo through still air. Observe Rebecca Nurse ascending the scaffold steps, her posture straight despite trembling limbs. Her eyes lift to the horizon, serene as a still lake at twilight. Now sense the coarse rope looped around her neck, its fibers whispering against her linen collar. Hear the executioner's quiet murmur as he tightens the noose with careful precision. At that moment, the morning breeze carries a faint chorus of church bells from the village below. You may feel the cold snap of wind biting at your cheeks, a warning from the wild beyond. Listen to the rasp of Rebecca's sleeve as she brushes straw dust from her skirts. And yet within her calm lies a tether of fear, like a spider's silk thread straining against the wind. Shift your gaze to the crowd's edge, where Mercy Lewis's eyes glisten with unshed tears. She whispers a prayer, her breath catching on frozen syllables in the dawn air. Feel the subtle tremor in the scaffold planks as her grief ripples outward. Nearby, Tituba clasps her hands, knuckles shining in the lantern glow, heart pounding in her ribcage. She stifles a sob, the sound trapped behind her teeth like a frightened bird. Now imagine placing a hand over your own heart to steady its rapid thumps. The executioner steps back, allowing Rebecca Nurse to speak her final words. Her voice rings clear and gentle, each syllable hovering like mist over a still pond. "I forgive you," she says, her gaze sweeping the crowd as though blessing each soul. Feel the warmth of her forgiveness brushing your skin, soft as sun through a linen veil. As she kneels, listen to the scrape of her dress against rough wood. The executioner's blade glints briefly before he lifts it to the post. Then a hush thicker than fog descends, broken only by the click of the blade's mechanism. Your breath might catch as the cold metal touches the wood's rough surface. In that slow moment, the world seems to hold its breath with you. At last, the blade falls swiftly, its echo crackling like distant thunder. Feel the tremor travel through the scaffold into your legs, grounding you in the solemn reality. A muffled gasp ripples through the crowd as Rebecca's body sags, serene even in its finality. Now silence returns, so profound that you can almost hear each villager's heartbeat. And yet the air remains charged with unspoken remorse. Notice the soft clatter of straw as the executioner steps forward to remove the noose. You may feel a chill shiver up your spine at the hollow sound. Meanwhile, Mercy bows her head, tears finally spilling in silent rivulets. Nearby, a cluster of children press their faces against the rough palisade, eyes wide and glassy. They tremble at the sight, their small hands curled into fists against the wood's grain. If you haven't yet fallen asleep, leave a comment so I know who's stayed awake longer than I have. Now sense the morning light inching higher, illuminating faces etched with awe and dread. Hear the distant call of a mourning dove echoing from the forest edge. You might feel the weight of the world pressing into your shoulders, heavy as a wool cloak. A woman's soft sob drifts through the hush, raw and unguarded. And yet someone begins a low hymn, each note a fragile beam of comfort. Feel the hymn's resonance stirring in your chest like a gentle pulse. Observe the executioner lowering the body, his movements deliberate and respectful. The rope slackens with a dull thud as flesh meets wooden plank. Trace the faint scent of tallow candles still burning in the lantern jar. Listen as the hymn rises, voices trembling together in shared lament. In that communal sorrow, you might press your hand to your lips, silent in reverence. The last note fades, leaving only the whisper of wind among budding leaves. Now turn your gaze toward the sky, where a solitary cloud drifts like a silent witness. Feel the new sun's warmth seeping through layers of night's chill. And yet beneath that warmth lies a yearning for justice unmet. A young jailer's child, hidden behind a post, stares with wide eyes, mouth trembling. She clutches a torn scrap of Rebecca's petition, pressed to her chest as if it were a talisman. Imagine her tiny fingers tracing the inked names, seeking hope in those scrawled lines. Listen to her soft gulp as she holds back tears of confusion and awe. Now hear a man's firm voice calling for order, voice tight with unspoken grief. He gestures solemnly for the crowd to disperse, steps echoing on damp grass. You may sense your own feet shifting, ready to join the slow exodus. As the villagers drift away, notice the empty scaffold standing stark against pale sky. Its ropes sway gently, whispering of lives ended too soon. Feel the hush enveloping the hill like a mist rolling back toward the forest. And yet, in the lingering silence, Rebecca Nurse's forgiveness remains, echoing through hearts. You might close your eyes for a moment, letting that grace settle over you. In the quiet that follows, imagine the names of the fallen written in morning dew upon each blade of grass. Listen to the distant snap of a twig as someone steps into new day's light. Now take a deep breath and feel the cool air filling your lungs with the promise of memory. As the sun rises fully, the gallows hill grows empty, save for the silent scaffold. And you walk away carrying the weight of compassion born in the darkest dawn. As we begin Chapter 8, imagine yourself descending into the dim cellar beneath the meeting house. Feel the cool stone pressing against your fingertips as you lower yourself down the narrow stair. Listen to the soft drip of water echoing from unseen cracks overhead. Notice how each drop reverberates like a distant heartbeat in the hush. Meanwhile, a faint breeze sighs through a small grated window, carrying the scent of wet moss. You may sense the damp chill wrapping around your ankles, grounding you in the moment. Now picture Giles Corey standing before the magistrate's table, arms bound, eyes steady. His great frame fills the scant light, casting a long shadow against the cold wall. Feel the coarse rope biting into his wrists as he remains unbowed. Observe the magistrate's quill, scratching accusations onto yellowed parchment. And yet, within the quill's scratch lies the weight of silent endurance. Imagine tracing the grain of the magistrate's desk with your fingertips, feeling its worn edges. Listen to the whisper of Corey's breathing, slow and deliberate. You might place a gentle hand upon your own chest to match his steady rhythm. Meanwhile, off to your right, Martha Corey watches through tear-glazed eyes. Her skirts rustle like autumn leaves as she shifts in anxious anticipation. Feel her grief as it ripples through the cellar's still air. In that grief, notice a quiet strength blossoming like frost-tipped flowers in winter. Now sense the scrape of iron stakes being carried into place by silent attendants. The metal's hollow ring sends a shiver through the space. Listen to the leather hinges creak as they open to admit the mounting stones. Picture each slab stacked beside Giles, rough-hewn and unyielding. Feel the grain of stone against your palm as you imagine touching its surface. Meanwhile, in a shadowed corner, the jailer's daughter presses her cheek against the wall. Her small frame trembles as she watches her father lower each slab. You might cup your hand to your mouth to hold back an unspoken gasp. Now smell the faint tang of cold iron lingering in the cellar air. And yet beneath that metallic scent lies a darker promise of crushing weight. Imagine the clatter of stones settling, echoing like distant thunder. Feel the cellar floor vibrate with each slab's heavy arrival. Observe Giles Corey bow his head, unafraid of what comes next. His silence speaks louder than words in this stony chamber. You may feel the echo of his resolve stirring something deep within you. Feel the tension coil, ready to spring in the hush. Imagine placing a hand on the rough wall, feeling its solidity, its permanence. Meanwhile, Giles Corey lifts his chin, voice clear despite the cell's gloom. "I stand mute," he intones, each word a steady drum against the quiet. The echo of his declaration ripples through the stone arches. You may press your fingertips into your palms, feeling the pulse of his bravery. Now sense the attendants exchanging glances as they prepare the next stone. Feel the weight of unspoken dread settle like a second skin. Listen to the final slate slab thud into place, sealing Giles in a coffin of his own making. The room grows darker still as light struggles past the tiny window. Imagine the last glimmer of daylight sliding over Giles's resolute face. And yet in that darkness, his spirit shines brighter than any lantern flame. Feel your heart thump in time with his silent vigil. Meanwhile, in the meeting house above, a hush falls as villagers realize the severity. Soft sobs drift through corridors, joining the cellar's distant drip. Pick up the faint scent of pine beams warmed by the day's weak sun. Then smell the musk of damp earth seeping through cracks below. You might close your eyes briefly, letting each aroma guide you deeper into the scene. Now listen for the faint rustle of feathers as a barred owl shifts in a rafter. Its silent flutter underscores the solemnity of this moment. Imagine its keen eyes watching, attentive to every breath and movement. Feel its presence as a silent witness to human suffering and stubborn grace. Meanwhile, Chief Magistrate Staunton raises his voice once more. "Let him answer," he commands, voice echoing like distant thunder. And yet his words find no purchase in the stone-cold defiance beneath. Hear the attendants' boots scrape on flagstones as they add yet another slab. The stone seals a man, but cannot seal his resolve. Imagine the weight bearing down, each stone a question unanswered. Now feel the stone's cold embrace, unyielding as fate itself. You may draw in a deep breath, feeling the chill fill your lungs. In that breath, sense the solidarity of every protest unspoken. Meanwhile, Giles's daughter Martha stands at the barred balcony. Her knuckles whiten as she traces each mortared seam below. Tears pool in her eyes, reflecting the pale light like shattered glass. Yet in her trembling form, fierce love and pride entwine. Imagine her lifting a small scrap of paper, the last letter from her father. You might feel the thrill of hope and dread mingling in your chest. Now listen as the final stone drops into place with a resounding crash. The cellar's gloom becomes absolute, save for a sliver of grey sky above. Feel the dust settle in heavy motes, drifting like slow snowfall. And yet in that stillness lies a quiet triumph of unbroken will. Meanwhile, outside in the village square, bells toll in mourning. Each peal carries news of Corey's sacrifice to clustered homes. You might sense the echoes travelling across fields, stirring anxious hearts. Feel the grass sway beneath unseen footfalls responding to clang. Hear the low murmur of voices gathering to offer prayers. Picture a group of children weaving ribbons into a wildflower wreath. Their small hands tremble as they fashion a tribute for the pressed man. Imagine placing a ribbon between your fingers, feeling its soft weave. In that simple act, witness the persistence of compassion amid cruelty. Now sense the sun sliding behind cloud banks, dimming its warmth. And yet, even in waning light, the memory of Corey's stand glows. Feel the touch of evening's first breeze rustling coarse wool shawls. Listen to the distant hoofbeats of a messenger riding toward Boston. His news will carry Corey's fate beyond county lines. Picture Mercy Lewis kneeling at the well, hands clasped in silent apology. Her whispered penance drifts across rippling water. You might lean close to hear each tremulous syllable. In her plea, find an ember of remorse flickering in human hearts. Now as dusk gathers, return to the cellar in your mind's eye. Imagine the sealed stones still and unchanging beneath the earth. Feel the weight of history settling over that hidden chamber. And yet, beneath that pressure, the spirit of defiance remains uncrushed. If you haven't yet fallen asleep, leave a comment so I know who stayed awake longer than I have. Listen once more to the last drip of water echoing into endless dark. You may press your hand against your heart, recalling Giles's final gift of silence. Beneath the press of stone, his voice lives on, unbroken and unbowed. And as you rise from the cellar's imagined depths, carry that stubborn courage with you into the night.